So we found ourselves greenside here on a par 4, trying to get up and down to save par. And today I want to help you develop a consistent, repeatable, basic chip shot, probably be reliable for about 75 to 80% of your chip shots. Okay, so what we want to try and develop is something that is consistent, reliable, process and a method to help you give yourself a chance to get the ball up and down. Okay, so I always say, you know, if you want to try and get that ball rolling as soon as possible, okay, so whether that's a greenside chip and run, whether that's something that's over a bunker, get that ball running as soon as possible. So we've got a mid-range chip here, about sort of 20 yards or so. My go-to club is a pitching wedge. You can change the loft, but here I feel like this is going to land a third and run 2/3, so it's going to give me a pretty short swing. As I said, it's going to be super reliable. Okay, so most guys that I tend to teach, they struggle with either the fats or the thins. Okay, so we see guys, you know, digging that leading edge in, catching it fat and ball just going in front of them, and then next time what we see is we see the guys kind of lifting up, reacting to that previous bad shot, and the ball sailing through. Okay, and it's down to a couple of key points. Okay, so the first thing in this setup position, what we want to try and do is have a pretty narrow stance. I usually go off a club head in terms of my heel width, and I can then just get into this position here that's pretty narrow. We don't need that much stability on such a short shot, so we're going to be about a club head, and then we're going to try and favor that left side. Okay, so I feel about 70% of my weight in this sort of lead side. That's going to help me hit slightly down on the ball. Okay, what you'll see as well is that I'm very close to it. Okay, so by getting close to it, we can get this shaft in a vertical position. We know that if we can get it nice and vertical, naturally that club's going to swing up and down. Okay, it's going to be in a natural pendulum position, pendulum motion, that's going to allow that club get back to square. Okay, so get yourself nice and close to the ball and grip down the club. By gripping down on it, it's going to give you that extra control that you're looking for. And once we're in this position, the big thing I see with a lot of guys is they have too much shaft lean. Okay, so too much of this movement here, where as soon as we have too much shaft lean, that's essentially going to get that club digging into the ground. What I tend to see when I'm coaching a lot of my students that are struggling with the chipping is they catch it fat or thin. Okay, so fat is essentially when we hit the ground first and that ball just kind of goes just in front, or quite often the case, they'll react to that and they'll come up, thin the ball along the ground. Okay, so a lot of that is around that low point control. Okay, so it's trying to get the correct low point control in a shallow motion. Okay, so we're going to go through that process in terms of getting close to it, getting that weight forward, gripping down. Okay, and then if we're trying to combat these issues in terms of strike, I want you to think of one thing in the swing. Okay, so if we look at this setup position here, you'll see that the shaft is in a centered position. Okay, there's no shaft lean this way, and there's certainly no shaft lean that way. We're in this kind of 90-degree vertical position, and all I want you to do is I want you to think about returning that club or returning that shaft back into this position. Okay, so we hear about using the bounce and using the sole of the club to glide along the ground, and the thing is, even if you might have the correct setup, this is where guys go wrong. Okay, so if we lose that angle of the shaft, we present this leading edge. If we lose it the other way, we almost present too much bounce, come up and thin the ball. Okay, so a lot of that is created by creating this natural rocking motion with the shoulders, but also just allowing that club head to return. Okay, we want that to return to this impact position. We're not dragging it with the handle. Okay, we're certainly not flipping it and getting that early release. We are just returning that club as we are making that turn. Okay, so into position, narrow stance, weight forward, stand close, and then we are just going to try and return that shaft back to impact. And what we can find is that we're really going to get a good level of consistency with your ball striking. Okay, you're not going to get the fats and the things, and even more, your bad shots should still be okay. Okay, that's the big thing. If we're getting that correct position at impact, turn, return that, and we can hear that strike. It's nice and solid, and we can then start to play around with club selection, whether that's, you know, depending on how much roll that we need, but we can start to get in position. And again, we can start to get a good bit of consistency there. What I want to move on to now is I want to show you some awkward lies. In particular, if you're next to the rough and that ball sat down, let's go through that and see how we can make an improvement. Okay, so we're in a similar location, but now the ball sat down. Okay, so I've still got a little bit of green to work with, but that ball is sat down a little bit nasty. Not something that we'd really want, but all you need to do is do a couple of very simple changes and it should come out and react pretty predictable. Okay, so what I've got here is I've taken one extra club in terms of loft. So I've gone from my pitching wedge down to my 50 degree, so a little bit more loft, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to very simply move that ball back in the stance. Okay, so by moving it back allows us to get into the ball a bit steeper. Okay, so when that ball is sat down, we need to get to the back of the ball. We clearly can't use the bounce as much, because if we use the bounce, then that club's going to snag, because there is so much grass stuck in between the club and the ball. So all we're going to do, make this very simple change by moving the ball back, get the hands forward. We can put a little bit more weight on that left side, and then we're going to try and play it exactly the same. So we're going to turn the shoulders, and it's just going to pop out, and you can see that ball releasing up towards the hole. Okay, so as I said, something that's perhaps a little bit daunting at times, but just making this very simple change, moving it back, weight forward, more shaft lean, we can see that, and then we are just going to rock the shoulders, and we can see it popping out quite nicely there. Let's just try one more. Again, bit of an ugly one. We've got it sat down, we've got the grass behind us. Same idea, rock the shoulders back, and it's just going to pop out like so. So two types of chips, one on a pretty good lie, one on a lie that's sat down. Keep it consistent, move that ball position around, and you should find a lot of consistency in your chipping. Thanks as always for watching, guys. If this is your first time watching the channel, please don't hesitate to subscribe. I look forward to seeing you again very soon.